if a hill horse's head's to the right, when you're coming through the corner trying to heel, that's going to put his head right in your line of vision. And if his shoulders are down and he's leaning in, he's cutting in towards the head. So then you're going to have to try to pick him up and scoot him over.
This is Chelsea Schaefer, and this is Season 4 of The Score. You all have listened to this podcast 750,000 times, and we are here in Season 4 to bring you even more of what you love. Today's episode is brought to you by Manna Pro. I'll tell you more about them at the episode break. Hey everyone, this is Chelsea Schaefer. Welcome to The Score this week. You all loved our episode with Miles Baker so much on his head horse foundation that he puts in the horses that he and Trevor Brazile ride, that we decided we were going to give you a heel horse episode. So Miles so graciously recorded his own instructions for heel horse training, and this is your regular week of The Score. So enjoy, let us know what you think, and don't be afraid to leave us a review. We love to hear from you.
Hey guys, this is Miles Baker. I'm driving down the interstate today, headed to Lazy E for the BFI tomorrow morning. We're looking forward to that. I spoke with my friend Chelsea last night. She said some people got a little bit of good out of the head horse training podcast and requested a heel horse training podcast, and just kind of get my philosophy on it, how I go about it on my horses, or mine and Trevor's horses, and just to get whether it's setting a prospect up to go on to somebody that's looking for a good prospect, or whether it's something that I've started that is going to the BFI or NFR or wherever. And so I want to thank the Team Roping Journal and Chelsea for having me on, and I'm going to ramble about hill horses a little bit. I would say first and foremost, what I want in a hill horse is them to be super broke, and not even broke. I don't mean spin a hole in the ground broke. I mean, I need to have control of the head, the shoulders, the ribs, the hips, from one end to the other, and be able to manipulate everything. If I can do that, I can truly use all the ability that horse has to offer to reach his full potential. And fortunately enough, I grew up riding young horses in a feed yard and on wheat pasture and outside in the pasture doctoring calves, and my whole life I've just had to use colts, and I never realized how valuable that was until I would say probably the last 4 or 5 years, when I started actually training for the public, and then even more so now that Trevor and I have so much horse business going on together. Because when you're training them for like a guy like him that asks so much for a horse, and I'm not going to say demands perfection, but a guy that he has high expectations every time he steps on a horse's back. He's rode the greatest horses, a list of the greatest horses to ever do it in our industry, head horses, heel horses, calf horses. And so it puts a lot of, not weight on my shoulders, but there's a lot of expectations for what I train to go on and be something. And so the background of me growing up on a ranch and using young horses is, I feel like, giving me an edge over a lot of people that maybe just learned to ride so they could team rope. Maybe they didn't learn how to use a horse as good, or didn't understand young horses as good. And I tell people this all the time. They come to me and, man, my hill horse ain't stopping. Man, he's hitting on his front end, or he's quartering, or I can't get him on his butt. And people want to come rope with me, but I ride colts until noon, and I rope after noon. And the people that want to come learn, that stuff, like why is my horse hitting on his front end, they want to come out there when I'm roping steers, and that stuff is learned before lunch at my house, because all that goes back to riding them as colts. If they're not taught that stuff when they're little, swinging a rope and pulling on 2 reins is not going to fix the problem. And so I'm fortunate for the background that I grew up with as a kid, because it's helped me get where I'm at today training. So I'll talk to y'all a little bit about how I like to go about training the hill horse when I have them broke, and before I start swinging a rope on them, I'll make sure I have them broke, because if they're not broke to the best of their ability when I start roping on them, I've taken shortcuts that will catch up later, or it will hinder their potential going forward. So once I have them broke like that, I want them to, I'll start them on like breakaway and Holsteins, and it's hill horses for me. Training hill horses is all about discipline. I have to be disciplined about how I ride them, because it's hill horses. There's pockets and boundaries, I'll say, is the best way to explain it. When I'm behind the cow, say in the tracking phase, there's a boundary behind that steer. Say it's and everybody's different. There's, guys that are Alan Bach size, and there's guys that are mine and Trevor size, and we will probably all require different positions to feel comfortable heeling. But so for me training, say I'm going to there's a brick wall a foot off of that cow's tail, and my horse is not allowed to go past that wall. So I'll set that boundary when I'm breakawaying, and what that'll do later is if I get that brick wall right there solid, I can push my horse up into that cow and pick my timing up to heel and help him stop. So that's the very first thing that I work on once my horse learns to track. Obviously, like I said, on the team rope or on the heading, I spend a ton of time roping a lead steer, breakaway, and just tracking and breakaway. And a horse has to go find a cow, hook up to the cow, lock on, pay attention, and just be a student of the cow. A horse has to be locked on. And so once I get that, I'm going to set the boundary, say in the tracking phase, where my horse knows to not go past this point. Because everybody that ropes knows there's nothing worse than trying to rope when your hands back here in your chest and your shoulders are back and you're leaned back pulling on your horse trying to throw your rope. It don't matter if you're Junior or Jade or anybody, that makes roping hard. I'm not saying some guys, they may even make a living doing it, but it makes heeling, it makes any kind of roping hard when you're having to pull on your horse to throw your rope. So that's phase one. The next phase, when I'm going on to heeling steers, I'm going to set another boundary going down the pin. So now, say, and like I said, everybody rides a different corner. Everybody wants to maybe see a different shot. For me, training horses, I would rather train them farther back and let a guy push them up into stuff than to train one that goes too far on the cow and overruns the run, and then you're trying to pull him back down into the run, because it's always either easier to push a horse somewhere than to pull him back off of it. So my boundary going down the pin, say I might run a line straight off that steer's tail head and just say back 3 or 4 foot. So now going down the pin, I'm going to let my horse freewheel, as I would call it, like he's on his own. I'll throw him his head or whatever. But when I get to that point on the cow, I'm going to expect him to gather his stride up, collect, lock onto the cow, and stay right there. He doesn't get any farther down the pin. He doesn't fall back. He gets to that position and he holds it. And so what that does later is it puts a little bit of weight on the horse for if something bad happens. Say you're at a rodeo and you jump out there to haze, and your guy hooks him and your steer checks off. Well, there's only so much, like, we're human, we have to see stuff happen and then react to it. So if my horse has no reaction of his own, or no, if he's not paying attention to what's happening in the run, then I have to have the reaction time to pull him back around into the run. He has to react to me pulling on him, and then I have to try to get back around where I can see the feet. That's a lot of reacting going on in a short amount of time. So if I can teach my horse, if I jump out there to haze one and he knows to only get so high on the cow unless I push him farther, then he can react on that, because he knows to get to a spot and pick up the cow and read the cow. And so that'll help later on with your horse helping you out. And the next thing is my pocket in the corner. I would say training hill horses, young hill horses, I'll look at, obviously on a prospect, everybody's going to look at the stop. If a horse is rounding and stop and drags his wheels, that's awesome. But when a horse has had 2 or 3 or 4 months of roping, I'm probably going to watch a horse through the corner more than anything, because if a horse isn't good in the corner, you're going to have a hard time making a living on him. A horse can mess a run up more in the corner for you than he can in a stop. The stop can be manipulated in a lot of different ways. Certain ropers have different timing. Maybe a horse, the stop isn't good for one guy, maybe good for the next. But through and through, if a horse is bad in the corner, it'll screw anybody that gets on him. And so I create, in my mind, a pocket. So I've set a boundary going down the pen. Now I've got a pocket to where, say there's a bubble around that steer that, say it's 10 foot big. I'm not allowed to get into that pocket. Like, I can't go through that bubble until that steer is all the way through the corner. So through the corner, when his head bends, I should be able to see his feet and see him hop all the way through the corner without having to pull my horse back. If I'm having to pull my horse back out of the corner, then it's going to throw my timing off. If my horse knows where to be going down the pen, and then he doesn't collapse the pocket, I can always see the feet, I can always get in time, and I can always go to the feet. And so the corner, which for me, I make it very complex, but like I said, that's one place that I feel like a hill horse has to be good. So I don't want to collapse the pocket. I don't want to get too close. So then the next step goes to them being broke. I'll want my horse's head, like his nose, ticked to the inside just a little bit all the time. I'm not going to say it's a necessity. There's some of the greatest hill horses to ever live. I don't think maybe did that, but their shoulders were always in a good place. I can control my horse's shoulders with my bridle reins, and that goes back to them being broke. If I pick up my inside rein, my horse's nose should come to the inside, and that should lift his shoulders up and move his shoulders out. So I can control his head and his shoulders with my reins alone. If I want to control his whole body, I should be able to lay my leg on his side at any time in the run, and that should push him just in the direction that would be getting wide to the steer. So I've got to have those cues, and the main place those cues are going to come in handy is the corner. If something's funky in the corner, or say I let my horse come in too soon, and I can pick my inside rein up and my horse will lift his shoulders and scoot over closer to the steer, then I've got an advantage, because even though maybe I rode bad or maybe a steer went downstream or something, I can make one reaction with my reins and all of a sudden my horse has me right back where I need to be to see the feet and heel. So when I do come through the corner, as I was saying, there's a pocket, and I don't want to collapse the pocket. I want to keep my distance. If I'm just riding, which the professional guys, I'm sure they would, if they're just catching, they're going to make sure they can see the feet all the way through the corner. I'm no professional healer. I'm talking about from the aspect of training a colt, or not a colt, but a green hill horse in the early stages of it. And then as they get on older, I may let the boundary go up a little farther. I'll start letting them get a little higher. I'll start letting them stay what I call around the steer a little more, and just making them more dependent to where if I want to ride higher or ride around the steer more, so to speak, and set up for a faster shot, that they can do that on their own without me having to control everything. So if I'm riding perfect position on a colt, when I go to come to the corner, I want his ribs bent out just a little bit. I don't want his ribs bent in. I don't want his shoulders in. I want his shoulders lifted up. I want his ribs bent out and his head ticked to the inside. That keeps him, I call it framed. So he'll be framed up all the way through the corner.
Today's episode is sponsored by Manna Pro. Champions, colleagues, roommates, and personal trainers. Whatever role they play, they're an important part of our lives. In their quiet way and their not so quiet way, they keep us young. On our feet, on the go, they pull us back to nature and push us toward the next adventure. And as much as we count on them, they count on us all the more to nurture their lives with the same commitment to protecting them, helping them grow and thrive, and treating them as well as they treat us, by giving them a little more of our lives, because no matter what role they play, we're here to make their lives the best they can be. Manna Pro, nurturing life for generations. Check them out at mannapro.com or on Facebook at Manna Pro Horse.
If a hill horse's head's to the right, when you're coming through the corner trying to hill, that's going to put his head right in your line of vision. And if his shoulders are down and he's leaning in, he's cutting in towards the head. So then you're going to have to try to pick him up and scoot him over. Any of that stuff, I'm not saying it will always mess you up catching 2 feet, but that stuff will make catching harder. It's going to put you in an awkward position, and you're going to have to manipulate more things through the corner, as opposed to your horse staying in a perfect frame and staying with the steer, basically mirroring the steer through the corner. So when I'm teaching that, I may let somebody turn a steer, and I may just keep my horse's nose to the inside, keep his shoulders picked up, and keep his ribs bent out, and just idle him down right there and let the cow turn. Or I may let the cow turn and I may push him up there a little bit higher and just keep him in my hand and just teach him body control. And I'll play with their hips a little bit. It's nearly like I said in the Head Horse podcast. I'll teach a horse to push his hips out to the left when I'm steer stopping or when I'm turning them in an early stage. And all that's doing is reassuring that, hey, where our hips, if anything, need to come this way because we cannot get them up under the rope. It's the same way on a hill horse for me. If their hips swing to the outside in the corner, I'm losing power. All the power on a horse comes from their butt end. So if I'm going through the corner, and I see it happen a lot, horses will get bent with the cow through the corner, but their hind end will start drifting down the pen. Well, then it's hard to gain ground on the cow, or it's hard for your horse to be in a position where he's driving in there on his butt, and if you throw, everything set up to come tight and be strong. So I might stop in the corner and I might push my horse's hips to the inside and just make him hold his hips to the inside with his nose in and his shoulder picked up. So basically what I've done to my horse's body is basically cupped him around my left leg, which is what I always want. I never want him going through my left rein with his head and shoulders. I never want him pushing through my left rein, and I never want him pushing through my left leg. If they're bent around my leg all the time, they should always be in a perfect frame to give me a good throw, whether it's throwing in the corner or whether it's tracking across the pen, if they hold that same frame, every jump should be the same for me heeling. And so I've talked about the pocket, I've talked about the position, and then when we come through the corner, basically in the tracking phase is where it goes back to the breakaway and that boundary behind them. I want them to keep that distance. Every horse is going to get chargy at some point, and that's something, keeping that boundary is going to require you to maintain that getting chargy. Sometimes I'll hustle, swing my rope real hard, and I'll get them in there to that spot, and if they want to go past the spot, I'll pull on my bridle reins and just back them out and let them slow down and relax. Sometimes you may have to drag their butt right there. I think a lot of people do that and end up kind of picking a fight with the horse or getting after him too much, and then they make the horse nervous right there. And so instead of him not respecting his boundaries, now he's not respecting his boundaries and he's scared of getting in trouble, so that's not doing them any good either. But anyway, that's kind of just a broad spectrum of how I want to go about the hill horses. It's a lot of body control. I spend a lot of time loping across the pen and picking their shoulders up and moving their shoulders out and being able to lift them and it stays smooth. I spend a lot of time in a counter canter, going to the right and the left lead and just making sure I can lift their shoulders up, at any time. And as they get older, like I said, all that kind of run through of a run on a young one is what I'm doing on the 3 and 4 year olds. And then when you start adding speed to it, by the time I add speed to it, I should have all of those moving parts working together, to where they understand any cue. If I put my leg in them, if I lift my rein up, if I say use my right leg back by my back cinch to scoot their hips in, to keep their hips up under them. Their hips have to be under them all the time. Everything needs to be square. If you throw fast and take a hit, their hips need to be in line with their shoulders all the time. That's 80% of the horse's body, from his shoulders to his hips, is where all of his strength's going to come from. So if his shoulders are to the left, his hips to the right, he's not going to take a hit good. If it's vice versa, he's not going to take a hit good. But if everything can be in a line when he takes a hit, he's going to take a hit good. You're going to get a good fast finish. I don't mind their heads being to the left just a little bit when they're taking a hit. A lot of horses, I think Jake Smith's roan that's a perfect horse to watch as far as a hill horse being fundamentally correct. All of Joseph's horses are super good. I enjoy watching those horses that can use their body good. I don't think it's any mistake that some of the best hill horses in the world do those little things right. And a lot of horses lose their, kind of lose their polish after a lot of rodeoing and jackpot. But those good horses have had these fundamentals put in them from an early stage, and they've stuck with them long enough that those guys can make a living on them horses because they know how to do their job and stay out of the way and keep it to where you don't get in a bind where you can't catch 2 feet, or you're never in a bind where one movement can't correct it and get you back in the run. So that's kind of how we go about it. Like I said, when you get to a little bit higher stages, I'll start asking them to get a little higher. I'll change my boundaries. One thing that really doesn't change is the pocket through the corner. That a horse has to respect the pocket through the corner. You can ride them a little higher. You can set things up a little bit faster, but you cannot have a horse bulldozing through the corner, not respecting the cow. you just can't make a living heeling on a horse that has no respect for the boundaries that are set on a cow or doesn't watch a cow. So anyway, we're like I said, we're headed to the BFI. I'm heading on a 5-year-old we call Firecracker that Trevor's wife raised. He's actually out of a mare, the very first horse deal Trevor and I ever did when I was in college. It's been probably 7-8 years ago. This horse I'm heading on is out of the mare that he got from me, and Shadow raised him to run barrels on, which she did some, and he's a head horse now. Trevor showed him at the Futurity last year as a 4-year-old, and he done really well. We just got back from Arizona. The horse done good at the Futurity out there again. Tomorrow will be his first real big trip to town. We'll see how he takes it. Trevor's heeling on a Dulray hill horse that come from my dad. My dad bought the horse from Austin Johnson several years back, and I started him roping. He's super broke. Sure enough, a good horse. We took him to the Futurity in Arizona. He done good in the heeling. This will definitely be his first big venue to go to, so we're excited to take some young horses to a big roping and just see how they do. It's crazy. For me, I didn't know Trevor all of his career, but when I started going down there, every horse was between the ages of probably 7 or 8 and 15, and they were finished, been hauled all over the world. And now, if you walk through the barns at my house, there's 15, 20 horses there, and I think the oldest horses I have in my house that are rope horses, I think, are probably 5-year-olds now. I think I got one 6-year-old, and same way with Trevor. I don't think we have a single rope horse that's over the age of 6, so we're going about it a little bit different than what he sure would have done when he was making a living roping, but it's fun. We're enjoying making good horses, and anyway, for any of it, Chelsea with Team Roping Journal has my contact, and I don't know a lot, but if anyone ever has any questions or wants to come and hang out and rope or give me a call and talk about horses, I'm not saying I don't know much. I know much, but I can throw some ideas at you. Anyway, we enjoy it. Hopefully that helped you out a little bit on the hill horses. I really enjoy riding them, and if you want to get into a little more detail, just give me a call and we'll talk about it and throw ideas at each other. So anyway, I appreciate it. Hope y'all have a good day.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of The Score. We'll be back with a regularly scheduled interview in 2 weeks. Thank you again for listening today. Our episode was brought to you by Manna Pro. Check them out at mannapro.com or on Facebook at Manna Pro Horse.